Bucket a hole's a hole, you
Hey,
know.
love is love. How dare you? Yeah.
The world has wrought this upon themselves.
So AJ and I were boots, and we're out at our month-long training exercise in a beautiful, sunny 29 Palms. Very lacking of any tropical features, though. And so AJ is on fire guard, as they say in the Army, or Firewatch, as they say in our beloved Corps. And so it's his responsibility to make sure that nothing fucky is going on.
Which all the fucky things were going on.
And it was like our last day of training, and they let us all go down to the Warriors Club and have a few beers. I think the Lakers were playing the Pistons.
Everyone who wasn't on Firewatch got to go.
Yeah.
So not this guy.
So AJ is, doing his patriotic duty of making sure that the sea bags don't grow legs and walk away, because everybody has all their serialized gear on them.
There's only one thief in the Marine Corps. Everybody's just trying to get their shit back.
Yeah, and so it's like 0 dark 30 at this point, and then something quite incredible, something quite magical happened. Just one of those things that really restores your faith in humanity. I'll let AJ take it from there.
I wouldn't say it restores my faith in humanity so much as it proves a vital axiom of life, which is that at any time you can get pissed on.
So what happened?
And here is the crux of the story. So I happen to be on Firewatch. It's like 2 a.m, right? And because I'm on Firewatch, I'm fully dressed. I'm wearing an LBV like a dickhead, walking around with a moonbeam.
A load-bearing vest or a flick fighting load carrier.
Carrying a moonbeam, which is a boot camp flashlight. It's one of those Vietnam-era ones with a little hook in the top. Why we even had one there, I don't know, but it was specifically used to embarrass the boots by making us carry it. So here I'm carrying this moonbeam, walking up and down in this K-span, which is basically like if you took a Coke can and filled it half full of sand and then put humans in it. So I'm walking up and down this K-span, and there's just cots lining both sides. And Daniel's squad leader comes in, who is foreign, but in the Marine Corps, right? He's a squad leader, but he's of foreign descent.
He has a Swedish accent that kind of sounds a lot like Yogi Bear.
A lot like Yogi Bear. And he looks like a Simpsons character. And he puts this like Danish mud dip into his upper lip so it sticks out. So he looks like, no shit, a Mac groaning cartoon, right?
And I won't disparage him too much, because I think he'll probably find me and kill me. He was like Swedish National Air Defense or something high speed.
Swedish Arctic National Defense Team.
Yeah, so he basically just like skied and banged whores, and then he came to America and he's like, oh, I'm going to join the Marine Corps Infantry, and then he made sergeant in under 3 years. And then he went to Ranger School, and he was the honor grad, and then he went MARSOC. So he was a bad mamma jamma.
I mean, don't get me wrong. The man, when sober, was a fucking war fighter. When drunk, not so much. So he comes back from his wonderful evening at the Warrior Club.
Hitting on the bartenders.
Hitting on the bartenders and getting nowhere. And
no, he banged the one with the tattoos.
I wasn't aware of that.
The one with the bolt-ons and like the tattoos.
You would figure if that was the case, he would have done his business earlier, but I digress.
Yeah, and this is a little bit of foreshadowing. I'll throw in a little bit of nugget that you probably hadn't thought of over all these years, but continue.
So, Sergeant, I'm not going to say his name, but he's a sergeant. He comes back to the...
Sergeant Badass
comes back to the K-span, and his cot is right inside the door, and mine is right next to him. So he comes in, he crashes down on his cot. He is 100% asleep, snoring, right? And at some point, about 10, 15 minutes after he passes out, he sits bolt upright, and this is in the dark. I'm standing in the dark. Sits bolt upright, stands up, and all I see is his silhouette, right? Because the door is right there, the light's coming in. I can just see the silhouette of the man. So I'm like, what the fuck is this guy doing? I walk over there, and I hear a sound, rather like rain hitting canvas. And I see him, and he is pissing all over my rack. Luckily, I'm not sleeping in it, and my sleeping bag is rolled up because I'm not a turd, mostly. And so he's just pissing on the government-issued rack that I didn't bring, but at the same time, I'm like, well, great, now where the fuck am I supposed to sleep? And he's a sergeant, and I'm a boot, so I'm not going to be like, hey, drunkie, what the fuck are you doing?
And for those of you who are not part of my beloved Corps, being a sergeant actually fucking means something.
Yeah, being a sergeant in the infantry, at least back in my day.
You had one in a platoon of 50.
Yeah, and if a lance corporal said anything to you disliked, you just take their soul and you crush it.
Yeah, you just fucking tap dance on their ball sack.
Yeah, So you just shin kick him off a building. So,
But you got a lot of feedback about
I
that.
got a lot of feedback, and I think
I'd like to track that guy down, and or at least his descendants down, and be like, so how do you feel about this?
I feel like I should do like an animated like play-by-play video so
Yeah.
people could see what that was like. Because I think
A graphic novel.
a graphic novel, if you will,
Yeah.
right? I think it's hilarious in itself, but it's less hilarious, I think, in the moment. It's one of those things that's funny in retrospect because I
Yeah.
lived.
I think if you are planning another tattoo, it should be like a little kick plate on your shin that just says "kick here."
Why would I encourage people to do what almost fucked me in the first place?
Well, I mean, because you ended the last one's life, and so it's just kind of like suicide by AJ.
I like to point out that the last of the 3 times I've been dropped off a building, right? That
Yeah.
time I was kicked, 2 times I was dropped, right? 1 time I was dropped in training, landed on my hand. I had a mangled hand, just bleeding and
We
shit.
remember.
Yeah, well, this was SOI.
No, we remember from the last time you told the story.
Did I tell the story?
Yeah.
Anyway,
And
so
you said I can't finish the story. Gosh.
hey, I'm just trying to be entertaining, all right? So let's go back to Sergeant Badass. So he's pissing on my rack, and there's nothing I can do about this because I'm a boot and he'll kill me. So, well, not just him, but all the crazy ass senior Marines we had, like old boy that lived in the woods for 2 years. After
Yeah,
he got
all the
out.
guys that are a year and a half older than us, but hold the moral superiority of being a year and a half older than us in the Marine Corps.
Right. So I'm like, okay, I'm going to not deal with this right now. So I take my sleeping bag and I go at the other end, which is the only area where there's empty space, and I sleep in the sand, right?
Yeah.
I take my rack outside before I go to sleep. I put my rack outside. I cover it in dirt because I figure if I put sand on it, it'll soak up some of the pee or whatever.
Yeah.
And so the next morning, the sergeant wakes up and he goes, "Hey, fucking Pfeffer." And I come running over and he goes, yeah, I'm not going to keep doing the accent, but he goes, "What the fuck? Where's your rack at? What are you doing?" And I was like,
Unfuck yourself.
"Sergeant, I feel like if I tell you, you'll strike me in anger." And he's like, "I might strike you in anger if you don't tell me. It's a 50-50 either way." And I was like, "That's a fair point, sir." So I said, "You woke up in the middle of the night after a night of binge drinking and you came over here and you pissed on my rack." And he's like, "No, I didn't." And in a moment of stupidity or clarity, however you want to put it, I said, "I'm a Lance Corporal and you're a sergeant and you were part of the Swedish National Arctic Defense Team. Do you really think that I woke up in the middle of the night, took my rack outside, covered it in sand, and went and slept in the dirt because I just fucking felt like it, and then came up with a story about why you pissed on my rack? Does that sound logical, or does it sound like maybe you did it?" And the best part about this is, like, later that night, they let us go drink again. Well, they let you guys go drink again. I was on Firewatch because my squad leader's a douche. And so later that night, he gives a safety brief, and he says, "If you're going to go drink responsibly, and don't drink so much you piss on other people's racks." Not that anyone did that. I was like, "You did it, piece of shit," but okay.
That's like OJ was just like, I didn't do the murder, but if I did, this is how I would have done it.
Stab, 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 stab.
Just all the stabbing. And so was that the last time that your rack was pissed on? To your knowledge?
This is going to make me angry, I think, but
Well, you remember that little tidbit of morsel of information I said I was going to drop later that you probably hadn't thought about all these years?
here we go. What you got?
So remember how I said that he banged the whore bartender?
Yes.
Well, now imagine that, and also imagine the fact that what does the body do to separate the pee from the man batter?
There's a valve in there that shuts off your urethra from sending urine down.
Yeah, but are there still swimmers in the tube?
I'm sure there's 1 or 2 in the pipe.
So he just got done banging this whore, and then he came and peed on your rack. So there was a highly likelihood that there was at least 10,000 of his sperm cells on your rack.
It's the Marine Corps infantry. I'm sure there was 10,000 sperm cells on that rack regardless. How many guys jerked off on that rack in the silence of the night in sadness with tears running silently down their face?
I mean, I know I did.
I probably did too. So,
But see, like, for those of you who listen often, we all know that our AJ is a smart ass and most infantry Marines are stupid, so he'd make them feel inferior. Remember that scene in Full Metal Jacket where they all went up to Private Pile and they held him down with the towels and beat him with the soap? And, like, Joker didn't want to do it, but, like, he had to, just, like, so he wouldn't be isolated. That's basically what it was like jerking off on your rack every night when you were, like, on early chow or late chow. Like, I'm sitting there with tears in my eyes just jerking on your rack. I'm like, I don't want to do this. And all the seniors were like, jerk it faster, boot.
I would say that I would have no hesitation beating anyone in my platoon with a bar of soap. Lovingly. Pain is the mother of all discipline, sir.
Welcome to the smoke pit.
What up, no?
So we have AJ back here. This should be the last episode before co-host Mike Sensi comes back from his walkabout.
Yay.
His little sabbatical. And here in the near future, we're probably going to be moving studio locations, get an extra mic, do it a big style, you know? Like,
Don't we already have 2 mics?
yeah, but,
But
know, metaphorically and physically.
I would like to point out that I'm super happy that Sensi's coming back.
Yeah.
And my earlier lack of enthusiasm was for comedic effect. I say that because I don't want to hurt my chances of getting some of that.
Oh, yeah. But see, the thing is, like, Pride Month ended yesterday, so you missed your opportunity.
I really didn't. Navy is Pride Month every month.
Oh, it's a deep well, my friend.
What is it? It's not gay if you're underway. I'll take him out in a canoe somewhere and see how it goes.
So, one thing that our viewers and listeners have to understand about my very good best friend AJ here is that going out with him, especially traveling and more specifically when he's drinking, is an adventure. And you get to see the absolute look of what the fuck on people's faces as he likes to be loud and violent and just generally angry and drunk.
What the cinnamon toast fuck is this? That's my favorite meme ever. I don't know why.
He's a very large, loud man just being drunk and like just trying to like suck the marrow out of life for all the times that he had been fucked. You know?
That's a lot of times. Like I'd have to be Jeff Bezos just doing this for hookers and cocaine for like a decade before I'd be able to suck the marrow equivalent to the amount I've been fucked.
Yeah. And so it's always interesting the path of destruction left in his wake, and just the pure apology tour that I have to go on after him, so that way we don't end up in a local prison or a gulag of sort.
First, I will not apologize for art. Secondly, how many more times have I had to apologize for you to customs officials than you have had to apologize for me, sir?
Okay, like that's happened a few times, I'm not gonna lie, but it's also like the fact that at least it was one custom agent and not an entire bar full of like Australian hitchhikers and backpackers.
Fuck them.
Okay, so
That's not true. I will say that the Kiwis we met in St. Petersburg were pretty fucking cool, even if they were a bunch of man bun having hippies.
Yeah. And the thing that kind of bothered me about them is their hands were really rough. And I know your first reaction is just like, oh, shouldn't a man have rough hands? But let me pose this to you. Soap has moisturizer in it, does it not?
I'd imagine.
So if you shake a man's hand and they're like overly rough, or even a girl's hand, it's probably because they don't fucking wash their hands after they wipe their ass.
I think that really depends on the location of the roughness. Like I know a girl that's got calluses right here, but that's like lifting calluses, like that's specifically from working out.
Yeah, like I have calluses here.
But if like your whole hand is rough and like some of the back of your hands is rough and like you got some fur coming off of there, you're like, are you a longshoreman or do you not wash your goddamn dirty dick skinners?
Which is funny because we on our second deployment, I think I talked about this in one of the episodes that EP Mike deleted.
One of,
but nah, he's been doing great. And so we had a guy in our platoon who was just like the most useless kid in the whole platoon. Like he was like 100 pounds soaking wet. Like I don't know how he made it through School of Infantry, just by people dragging him and carrying his gear for him.
Is that guy you hated with the glasses?
I
don't want to say his name, but the one you were in charge of that you absolutely hated, like you thought he was a terrible person.
He was my roommate. He was like a good dude, and like he was like very admittedly the fact he's like, I'm only here to piss my parents off.
Oh, the one you used to have the contest with the eating of the stuff.
Yeah. So he's an Asian kid, and
okay,
if he's listening, like what up, what up, D, much love. Because actually, I remember I had the bottom rack and he had the top rack, and he was so like lazy. Like this is like he was super lazy. He would just sleep in my rack, and so I remember one time I was like, enough is enough, and so I got a whore and went into the room and I banged her in his bed while he was sleeping in my bed. So he like woke up to the entire like military grade rack shaking.
I like to point out that as much as you're giving him love now, and I appreciate that.
Yeah.
Dan can be one of two types of roommates. He's either the kind of roommate that you get to go have a good time with on the weekend, and he'll always be there and, you know, hook you up and watch your back. Or he could be the kind of roommate that walks into your room on a Friday afternoon and says, you know what? You're a turd. Like, you suck at everything. Yeah, you know what? I think you suck at eating noodles, and that's like your whole thing, right? And the guy's like, no, I don't suck at that. Dan pulls out 2 big old cups of noodles.
Okay, I'm going to stop you there. This was in Iraq when this happened.
You still his roommate, and you pull out, like, you're just being verbally abusive, barring on maybe a little ethnocentric, and
no, because the senior guy asked him, it's just like, you know, like, you always fall asleep on posts, like, you can't carry any extra gear because you're a fucking weak body, like, you're not proficient at your job, like, what are you good at? And, like, to be a smart ass, he was like, eating noodles, and I was like, bullshit.
Pulls out 2 giant cups of noodles, like, not the cup o noodles, it's like this big. Like, not the regular size, but like the jumbo
family size,
like the family size, like
Campbell's.
Like 8 people could get around this thing with like 8 sets of chopsticks and be stuffed at the end. It's like noodle eat off right now. Just crying. You can bleep that later.
Again.
He's sitting there eating these. That's a pretty typical name, I think. He's sitting there eating these noodles, right? And he's just like maybe like a couple of chopsticks in. Dan's like downing the water into his mouth because he sucked the noodles up like, you know, Lady and the Tramp combined. He just, noodles gone. He's like, throws the cup down like Thor in the first Thor movie. He's like, another! And he goes, you are terrible at everything, even noodles. Even your own people's food you suck at. Like, just, oh, wait, do you remember the time that he didn't call his parents while he was on deployment?
Yeah.
So the chaplain, the battalion commander, came to our battle position.
Yeah.
And the chaplain's like, excuse me, where's PFC so-and-so? And they bring him out. And the chaplain's like, hey, how come you haven't called your freaking parents? We brought you a sat phone, right? And he's like, And the battalion commander's like, good, take this sat phone. Call your mother right now. Hands him the sat phone. He calls. He's like, hey, Mom. Gets chewed out in, I guess, Korean?
Yeah, it was Korean.
Chewed out in Korean. And then finally, like, talks to his mother for a minute, hands the sat phone back. The battalion commander's like, good, you just want to not call your mother. You just want your mother to be in my business. Fill sandbags until I call your lieutenant and tell him you're done. Like 3 days later, like this guy probably went back and forgot because he's got shit going on.
Yeah.
3 days later, he calls back. He's like, hey, you can tell that small kid to stop filling sandbags. And even the lieutenant's like, the who? Oh, wait, we have one of those. Go tell him to stop filling sandbags.
Yeah. And so I destroyed him in this noodle eating contest. And he had to redeem himself somehow in the eyes of... So at this point, like... he's just taking all kinds of crazy dares and challenges, you know. And the dare came up that he had to lick the bomb dog's asshole. So we had a bomb dog named Daisy, who was handled by probably one of the sweetest guys I've ever met. Like, he's the kind of dude from like Florida who's like, you know, he lost his virginity to his wife after the wedding.
He was like, hey, man, I think you guys are just great people.
Yeah, and he said things like, oh, stank, and man alive.
Yeah, he was like one of those guys, like the worst thing he could say to you was like, you know what, man, bless your heart. You're trying. You're not getting there, but you're trying.
Yeah, and I think I have the video somewhere. Yeah, here it is.
It's Robert and Stephanie.
No. I had the actual video.
Oh, you have the video of him doing the thing?
Yeah.
How did you pull that up so fast?
Because I looked for the lieutenant's last name because the lieutenant's one who sent it to me.
What?
All right, so we're pulling this up. I'm going to try to put this up to the mic a little bit.
You got to, like, do a picture-in-picture of this on the thing.
Well, I mean, I don't actually want to put a picture of this up, but all right. So for those of you who can't see, basically it's nighttime. Everyone has their headlamps on, and young Marine has the bomb dog by the tail, and he's wiping the butt with baby wipes. And so we'll resume there. All right, so now they're all egging him on.
Daisy's being super patient.
Yeah. Now they're pointing specifically what part of the butthole he has to lick. And here it comes. Almost there. A little hesitation.
I can smell it.
I'm amazed someone hasn't shoved his face in there yet.
He's like, I can smell it.
Hurry up. He's trying to sit down.
So, all right.
Just get in there.
Oh, he did it.
Did it. We got to beep his name again.
I was about to say they said his name in the video.
So I don't even remember how much you made off of that. I think it was like $20 or something piddly.
Certainly not worth like an Iraq bomb dog's asshole.
In the middle of summer, too.
Dude. I mean, at least they let him use baby wipes. I mean, I guess that's something.
Yeah.
I don't think there's an amount of money that any Marine would have active duty that I would lick a dog's asshole.
Because, I mean, I like to eat ass. I've never been shy about that. But my rule is freshly out of the shower.
That's a fair rule.
You know, like you get in there and like you scrub it up nice and clean with some Irish Spring.
I mean, I got one of those Dove pumps, so it's
Yeah.
like foam, which is real nice because it
Yeah,
gets up in
yeah.
the cracks and crevices. Hey, and you know, if you get to the point where you're with a lady that you respect and trust,
Yeah.
you know, eat that ass like groceries.
And so I remember one of the best ways I've ever put this to a young lady was I was like, I'm going to eat the booty like groceries, but not just any kind of groceries because you're a classy lady, like Trader Joe's groceries.
Like Whole Foods, like $7 celery water. Like I'm like,
Yep.
hints of oak and mahogany.
Yep.
Is that a vanilla I detect?
A little bit. And so if you're wondering where your taxpayer dollars are going, ladies and gentlemen, that's where they're going. But before we get into that, I'd like to shout out Combover, combover.com, hair products, pomade, and beard oil. Fantastic products. AJ and I both use it on occasion. Keeps our beard nice and soft for the inside of ladies' thighs whenever the occasion should call for it. Although he and I are both, virgins that have never. What is sex, by the way? I've never heard of that.
My question is, where do I put my balls?
Preferably in my mouth. Oh.
Hey.
But anyways, yeah, use our discount code Creampie to save money. I'm not sure quite how much money, but it monies.
Enough monies.
12 schmeckles.
I mean, let's be honest. Like, just because the sense that I wanted to know how much these things were before we started hawking them, I looked it up on Google and I was like, that's a reasonable price.
Yep. And also to Strikeforce Energy, which is one of our favorite products that whenever you see me drinking a beer on the show, it usually has Strikeforce in it because I'm just tired to the world and I'm tired of dealing with people's bullshit. So I need to pick me up and it can go in your beer. Use our discount code SmokePit, one word. And you can also save doll hairs.
I will say that Strikeforce Energy came out to one of the events we did like a year or two ago. It was some Redskins thing. And they made like cocktails with Strikeforce in it. So you had like vodka and citrus and whatever the citrus version of Strikeforce is.
Yeah.
And it was like I could barely taste the actual Strikeforce because it was, of course, blended flavor. But it was pretty good. I'd never had it before. And I was like, all right, this is great. And then on the way home, I was like, hey, you guys want to stop and do something? Something crazy? I don't know what it is, but maybe some meth.
Maybe, take over a small country.
Speaking of meth, real quick, because you're from Florida, and I know you like Florida stuff.
Oh, my God.
Okay, this is not about Florida. I just want you to know that you're not the only crazy state on the planet.
I know, Louisiana exists.
No, a guy in Kentucky is on the lam as we speak.
Yeah.
And one of the things he is accused of, besides massive amounts of drug possession and use, is that he was feeding meth to an attack squirrel. The squirrel's name is D's Nuts, because of course it is.
Because why not?
Of course it is. On the lam, he called the Wall Street Journal, I believe, I might have that wrong, but he called it like a no shit newspaper specifically to deny the claim that he had ever fed meth to a squirrel because he said he treated that squirrel like a fucking
member
one
of
of
the
his
family.
one of his own kids.
Yeah.
Right? So
out of everything, that's the claim he wanted to dispute.
He was like, no, I did lots of meth, but I'll tell you, that squirrel was taken care of, son.
He's like one of the family.
He said, and I quote, I babied that squirrel more than you could baby anything in the history of anything. And I was like, that's a meth statement.
Yep.
Like he on the lam scored some more meth.
Speaking of people who care, check out VictorAlphaClothing.com, VAC. They donate like a ridiculous amount of the proceeds to charities. Like if you check out their social media, thousands of dollars. I had a good buddy of mine who was blown up on my tour to Afghanistan. He was like a combat replacement. He showed up and he was there for like 2 weeks, and then he was on a little outpost and they got attacked, and he almost died there. And then like a few weeks later, he got blown, not just blown the fuck up, but blown the motherfuck up. Like he had like white fluid leaking out of his ears. For those of you who don't know, that's the shit that goes around your brain. And am I right about that, EMT?
You are for the most part correct, sir.
More or less. For the purposes of this show and this audience.
I'm just saying nobody watching this show is probably a doctor, except for the few doctors we have that are listeners. Hey, you're doing great work.
The ones that say that you don't learn anything by listening to this show, well, guess what, bitch? You learned something.
I'm going to bring my med kit on the next time, and we're going to have a conversation about TCCC.
So, he got blown the fuck up, and they gave him, they gave him a shit ton of money for Christmas. And so, super cool company. Check out VictorAlphaClothing.com. Now back to fraud, waste, and abuse and taxes. We got a few minutes left here in the show, and AJ wanted to bring to light just the fucking ridiculousness that is our fucking government and government spending. So I'll give him a second to pull that up, and I'll just talk about how handsome and dreamy he is until he's ready. So looking upon his eyes is like looking at a meadow.
I'm ready.
Okay.
Let's not faff the audience. They can see how old and grizzled and old grumpy cactus that I am.
I mean, your phone's blowing up over there, so you're pretty popular with someone. I mean, I don't know, maybe...
It's Sensi.
Is it?
Yeah, he's telling me to stop being a fucker and taking his spot.
I thought it was maybe the IRS, like, pay your taxes, fuckhead.
Psh, taxes are for suckers.
Don't say that too loud, fuck.
Taxes are for suckers. Come at me, IRS. Oh, wait, they already did. So
yeah, you were deployed and you're like, hey bro, can you check my mail? Like dildos fucking melt in this heat. And I was like, all right, cool, I got you. So I drove all the way the fuck up to where he lives, like 2.5 hours away, and I brought in all the packages that were melting, and I was like, fuck man. And there was a big old fat fucking letter from the IRS, and you had to throw monies.
Yeah, but how many times have you got up there and there's been a fat fucking check from the IRS?
A few times.
Papa Bear does his business, right? I do okay. I do all right. Anyway.
There's been a few times I've gone up there and there's just been a Psycho X on your doorstep. I'm kidding.
Oh, you're about to get me in some trouble. So, Dan and I were talking earlier, and there's a lot of different things that get thrown around, and people who don't know what the fuck they're talking about like to say dumb shit because it sounds good in a soundbite, right?
Yep.
Like right now they just started the Democratic National Debate. There's 20 people on the stage. They just break into 2 days. And not to disclose any
2-minute warning.
I'm just saying, like, you got a lot of people. You got a lot of people on the stage. Like, this is the same shit the Republicans pulled last time. Don't get 30 people on the stage. Break it down. Find 2 people. There's 378 million people in the United States. Find 2 that are not assholes. Right? This is not hard. Okay. But I'm going to talk for a minute about defense spending, and then we're going to go into for a second. We're going to go to a second.
All right. So I know he's going to go woefully over, so I'm just going to hit the timer.
Oh, woefully over. Well, I think that, okay, so here's the thing, right? Everybody that I work with is a staunch right-wing Republican, right? So
can we not go there?
I'm not saying that there's anything
this
good or bad.
Show.
I'm not saying anything bad about
You know
them.
how it is, and I'll be the one to say it, so you're not the one in trouble. But there are people out there that if they even hear the opposing party, they fucking shit their pants.
They foam at the mouth, and they're like, oh, you don't love everything that the president's ever done ever in his entire life? Then you love Hillary so much you have sex with her. And I'm like, I just think they're both shitheads, right? And maybe not specifically the president we have now, but like in general, when we have elections for president, like these are the only 2 people we could come up with. 378 million people. I
don't want any of this in the show. This is not going to go good for us.
378 million people in the United States. Find me better candidates. Like when John Kerry came up there, like Mr. Milquetoast himself. Find me somebody that makes me care, right? It should not be the lesser of who gives a shit. Be that as it may, the one thing I get yelled at the most for is I believe in cutting defense spending, right? Mm-hmm. We spend somewhere in the neighborhood of $750 billion, that's billion with a B, on the United States, the DOD, right? That's not getting into all kinds of other funds that are all kinds of other money. So what I'm looking at here, what I looked up earlier, we spend $576 billion on our base fund, right? That's military just in the United States, just training, fixing, equipping, bases, that sort of shit. We spend $174 billion, which is a separate fund, which is specifically for fighting wars. Just so you guys know, the Defense Department budget does not include money for fighting anything.
Hey, EP Mike, can you grab some of the aluminum foil near the toaster oven in the studio kitchen and start making one of those hats? I just think it'd be a real cool visual that as he's talking about all these numbers, like we just put that on his... You got that, EP? All right, thanks.
Okay, so be that as it may. These are numbers. I pulled these off the internet, double-checked them several different times in several different places. I made some phone calls. These are pretty good numbers. They're pretty close. Everything's got little smidgens here and there. But these numbers are good. So it adds up to about $750 billion in spending, right? I would never say cut a single sailor, soldier, Marine, or airman ever, right? We need the men and women in uniform to do their jobs.
Got it.
What I would say is, why the hell have we increased by 100,000 people in 10 years our civilian workforce on bases?
Yeah, because it's like, I think in like the Army, it's like for every one defense contractor, there's 5 soldiers, and in the Marine Corps, it's like 1 to 10, and the Air Force and the Navy, I think, are both like 1.6, 1.7. So for like every 5 U.S. soldiers, you have 1 civilian. Like
exactly, and here's the thing: like if you're hiring contractors to do contractor stuff, like that's cheaper, right? Even if they're making a 6-figure salary, it's cheaper because you're not paying for all sorts of ancillary costs that you'd have.
You don't have to pay for rifle range. You don't have to pay for uniforms. You don't have to pay for TRICARE. Fucking, you don't have to pay for swim call. You don't have to pay for gas chamber. You don't have to fucking pay hush money when a Marine chokes out a hooker that was not born a woman.
Exactly. Like you pay a contractor. You have to pay like $50,000 up front for them to go to a school for a couple months to make sure that they know what they're doing.
Yep.
And you send them out in the world, pay them their money, and they're good to go.
Because
right?
we both know individuals that are the reason why you have to send them to a $50,000 school.
Yeah, because it's supposed to be a vetting course, and sometimes it's more of a training course because you're like, what qualifications do you have to be here? But
and not only that, but that, the fucking PFC Schmuckatelli who can't get right, he doesn't just diss the fuck up here, and he's just like, you know what, I was a really shitty Marine. I'm just never going to tell anybody I was a Marine. No, that's all he says. That's all he says is he was a Marine.
I had a guy in a training course back in the day that showed up in his unit sweatshirt, right? Wearing his unit sweatshirt and like some cargo pants. And I was like, nah, brah. Like, nah, take those ICBs, infantry combat boots. Take those Marine Corps ICBs and that sweatshirt off and dress like a professional. Like, what the hell are you doing?
Yeah. Insulated combat boots, my friend.
Whatever.
I'm the one who's going to get fucking all the 37,000 messages because you have a private profile and they're like, oh, I can't message him hate mail. Let me message Dan.
They can message me all they want. Nobody DMs me because they don't realize you can DM me without having to be following me already. And I accept almost everyone's follow requests.
Yep.
Be that as it may, sucks to suck. Sorry, being popular is your fucking problem.
I know, like I can't fucking kill myself because other people are like, oh no, we love the show, don't kill yourself, and I'm like, no.
Yeah, that's the only reason, not because you're the best family I've got, that's still breathing. Be that as it may, yeah. How do you like that? How do you like that guilt trip?
Oh my god.
How do you like that guilt trip?
Oh my god. With the amount that you smoke and drink, I don't expect for either one of us to be around very long. So that eventually that's not gonna work.
You know how many trips to the hospital I've had in the last 6 years?
Oh my god.
One when I was supposed to get DBA and they fucked me because they were like, what's your problem? I was like, I have sciatic damage from this explosion in Afghanistan. They're like, well, reach down and touch your toes. I was like, I can't. That's the problem. Like, my back seizes when I bend. They're like, I don't know what to do. But be that as it may. So let me go back to my original point.
Yeah.
All right, let me circle it back. We'll back up a little bit.
I have like 37 more jokes, but I'll let you continue.
No, we'll keep going with the old crotchety man jokes. I'm fully aware that you're going to call me a crotchety old cactus or whatever.
That's not the direction I was going to go in at all.
All right, it's probably something else. So government spending. Here's the thing, right? And there's a female Republican senator from Arizona. I don't remember her name.
EP Mike actually made the tinfoil hat. No, buddy, I'm good. I was just joking. I appreciate it, brother. That you're the best. I really appreciate it.
Style that he put the horns on the side. That was nice. That was a nice touch.
Yeah, very Viking-ish.
Right.
He did a good job.
Vikings didn't have horns in their helmets, but that's another story.
It's crazy, and it's just like it's terrible. And the women who like those team are also terrible.
Well, no, I don't mean the actual Vikings team. I mean, like, actual Vikings didn't have horns in their helmets. That was an 1886 decision by an operatic, the guy who makes the costumes for operas.
I'm tracking on that. I was just taking a thinly veiled shot at one of your exes.
Okay, well, here's a thinly veiled shot. The Vikings could go fuck themselves, and so can all those frigid snow people up there. But,
I mean, unless you buy one of our tank tops, yay!
Yeah,
available on our website.
If you live up in the frigid north and you buy a tank top, then you're definitely got some hair on your chest, and I can appreciate you.
You're good people.
You're good peeps.
That's like how I know you're not a terrorist.
Yeah, if you buy a Pop Smoke tank top, then you're like one step closer to non-terrorizer.
Yep, one step.
One step. You can't just buy your way to freedom.
Yeah, I mean, you're already suspect because you're from South Canada, so like
essentially yes.
Yeah.
Let me go back to government spending here because I have two things I want to rail on real quick. So we already discussed the civilians, right? We need to reduce the civilian workforce. I'd rather hire a Marine to work in an admin job than hire some random
gross.
person.
Fuck, no.
I mean...
okay, you know what fucking pisses me off? The fact of the matter that you send an individual to 3 fucking months of Marine Corps fucking boot camp and then stick them in some fucking shitty-ass job like that. Or the fact that we have, like, Marine brig guards that work right with Navy brig guards when it costs a fraction to train the Navy brig guard as it did to train the Marine brig guard. It's like, if it was up to me... Like, a lot of fucking jobs would be assimilated into the Navy. Like, you're not saying that, you know, like, they're doing anything wrong. Like, obviously, like, we got much love for all the people who do, like, admin and mechanical work and shit in the other branches. But as far as, like, being, like, a Marine, what really fucking pisses me off is when you see people who are like, oh, yeah, fucking all Marines are riflemen, but they don't know the difference between fire movement and fire maneuver. I'm like, at least study some shit. At least read a fucking pub if you're going to claim to be the rifleman.
Take a deep breath. Not everybody else has read MCDP 1 War Fighting. They should, but not all of them have.
It's such a basic fucking concept. It's not even in the book.
I'm not saying that you specifically have to be Marines. I'm saying that you can cut down the civilian workforce, replace them with the armed forces personnel from, and here's my second point, all of the military bases in the United States and abroad that we don't need, that are only kept open because the congressman from the great state of who gives a shit is trying not to lose votes from his constituency.
Yeah, because if that factory shuts down, then it makes him look bad.
Exactly. So if that base shuts down, then a lot of the people around the base that make money from it aren't going to make money from it anymore. And I understand everybody needs jobs, but we can't just pump millions and millions of dollars into a military base so that their constituency can make money. Like, you're wasting those soldiers, sailors, airmen, and Marines. Those could be used other better places. You can get people actual combat tours for one thing.
Yeah, and so I'm looking at your iPad over there, or tablet. Don't sue me. And you got a number over there that's kind of alarming. 174 billion. Can you talk about that?
174 billion dollars we're spending to fight ISIS.
Like, specifically ISIS?
Specifically, it is for fighting Islamic State.
Okay, so is that also, like, other people like Boko Haram and, like, the MILFs and the other people?
ISIS.
Just specifically the one?
Specifically ISIS. This is part of the OCO fund. This is the Overseas Contingency Fund or something. It's OCO, I believe.
So whenever you saw, like, some politicians say, we're fighting ISIL, is that the same thing or is that something different?
Yeah, one is the Islamic State in the Levant. The other one's like the Islamic State and something. I don't. Yeah. It's a name change. It's like the difference between when we used to say Al Qaeda and AQAP, which was a different branch of Al Qaeda somewhere else.
Yeah, and like how you had like the Mujahideen and the different like factions that were in the area.
Yeah, it's like you have the same general group.
The assholes.
Yeah, you have some splinters over here. You got some. It's like the difference between the mob in New York and the mob in New Jersey. Are they the same mob? Yes. Are they all controlling sanitation and making the most delicious pasta in the area? Yeah. Probably.
Could George Washington skip a stone across the river from one mob to the other? I don't know. I wasn't there. What are you, a cop?
I'm just saying, like, does the Pope shit in the woods? The bear's Catholic? Like, this is just how the things work. You know what I'm saying?
So we're spending $174 billion annually specifically for one group that, essentially, like, it's one of the most defeating fucking things about being a global war on terrorism vet is almost likened to being a Vietnam veteran, where you lose all these friends and comrades and people in different militaries that were attached to you, civilian contractors. Like, we had Marine friends that died as civilian contractors, and you're fighting for these cities. And then you see on the news, like, Sangin has fallen to the Taliban, or Husayba has fallen to the Mujahideen, and you're like, why the fuck did I lose all my friends there?
The thing that gets me about this is we're spending $178 billion on that. And I mean, I've spent a lot of time recently in the Middle East, right? I'm there constantly all the time.
Yeah.
So, I get a lot of different perspectives from different units, different organizations, the Army, the Marine Corps, the Navy, Department of State, Department of Defense. I talk to all kinds of different people, mostly because I get bored and I have nothing better to do with my time. When you don't get to shoot people, you got to find something else to do. And socialization is the best way to keep you from going crazy and pulling your hair out. Yeah. So I talk to all these different people. And the thing that gets me is that we're fighting an organization where the top is genius level, right? Yeah. Al-Baghdadi at no point attacked the U.S. Embassy, as far as we're aware. There are some agencies who lobbed a couple rockets at some point here and there down the line, right? But at no point during ISIS's height did they ever come down to Baghdad and knock on the front door of the embassy like, I'm here, motherfucker, deal with me.
Yeah.
Because they know if you shake the bear's coming back. They shook the bear one time in 9/11, and we spent 17 years kicking their teeth in.
Yep.
Now, did we win? Did we lose? That's not for me to say. I'm not a historian. I'm not a master at these things. But I will say that we're spending $174 billion to fight people who are buying drones off the internet and doing airstrikes with them. I've seen these. They're publicly available on YouTube, like airstrikes with drones off the internet.
Yeah,
so
you buy a $30 drone and you attach $5 worth of HME to it, and you spent less than $50.
I mean, occasionally you blow a guy's hand off because not every bomb maker knows what he's doing, right? And
you remember on our first tour, we were on the river and like we're just sitting there, and like I think you were like jerking off in the porta john, and I was just getting swole, and then we heard some
that's. If I was jerking off in the porta john, I was also getting swole. In that environment, any kind of heavy activity.
Target muscle isolation,
Yeah, I was isolating this muscle and this muscle.
And a little bit of the interior pec.
Yeah, I was doing the jerk off motion for those of you at home.
You really should watch our videos on YouTube or Instagram if you don't. But yeah, so AJ is just furiously fucking masturbating, and I am, being a good devil dog, just doing something productive, and boom!
Lies.
And like, oh, we gotta fucking spin up QRF, and I'm like, god damn it! And so I jump into the Humvee because my squad was on QRF, and we drive out there. And now I didn't get to see it personally because like I was on like the far side or whatever, but apparently this dude was like fucking setting in an IED and he blew himself up, and then he was just like, oh, I was farming. And I remember like the corporal who was there, he'd actually got shot in the buttstock during Steel Curtain, which was pretty fucking lucky for him.
Yeah, like hit and bounce. That was my team leader.
Yeah. And this was after like we had like a big fucking change in the squad because one of the squad, a few of the fucking senior guys decided to like get high on fucking dust off and like not go on patrol on Christmas.
I think that was the big one. The high on dust off was like they found that out later. Like, why didn't you go on the patrol now that you're at court martial? And they were like, we were stupid high on duster. And we're like, what? Like, well, you could have just asked the Iraqis for some hashish, and they're like, no, duster makes you stupid high, but only for like 5 minutes.
Yeah.
Then why weren't you on time?
And so actually, I don't know if it was him. I think it might have been that combat replacement corporal. I forget his name, but he showed up like the last like fucking month, like after all the big action was done. He's like, hey guys, I heard you get into fights every day. And we're like, yeah, bro, that was like months ago. It's chill now. Like, we killed everyone.
Was that the Native American guy?
Nah, he was like white as can be.
Was he white?
Yeah. Like, I remember he's like one of those dudes that I feel like he would invite me to his Methodist church, but understand if I didn't want to go.
Fair enough.
And so like we're out there and this dude was like, oh, I was farming, and like the corporal like looked around and is like barren earth, like not a fucking drop of moisture, all fucking rocks and fucked up like soil, and he's like, yeah, absolutely fucking not. And they were like, oh well, we don't want to fuck with him because like what if there's like a fucking dead man switch or an ID or something. And I forgot exactly what they did, but I think we pulled back and then like an airstrike came in and just boom and just fucking took out what was left.
That seems about average.
And it's something to that effect. And so like we're holding fucking tight on our position, and this dude is speeding at us because we have like a checkpoint set up while we're trying to like figure everything out, calling the reports, and he's speeding at us, and I'm like, hey, stop. And he didn't. So I pull out my little fucking gay air panel from my cargo pocket, and I'm like dangling it like a lady with a fucking kerchief, And I'm like, hey, stop. And so now I've showed and
Shot.
Well, I haven't shot yet.
Okay.
Yeah, but the equivalent of dangling your little fucking flag is the equivalent of like shoving, I guess.
Like waving your air panel like a dickhead.
Yeah, I'm like, hey, look, like if you can't already see all the giant fuck off trucks, like this tiny sliver of colored fabric, this is gonna deter you from blowing us up. And then so like the corporal is just like, all right, well, fucking take him out. And I was like, all right, Roger. So like to me that means like warning shots, disabling shots. You know what I mean?
Is this the guy in the truck?
I don't know. I think it was an Opal.
Okay, go ahead.
And so
I know where you're going with this now. That's the important thing.
So like I take a crack at the vehicle, and like I have a machine gun, and one of the rounds fucking skips off the ground in front of him because I was aiming for I wasn't aiming for lethal shots, but rounds fucking ricochet, especially when they're tracers. You can see where the fuck they go, and so like I burst, and like anybody who's shot a machine gun, like you can't exactly see like where the fucking shots went at first, Like maybe your fucking A gunner can see where your tracers went, but sometimes depending how dusty it is, like how hot it is, how much fucking CLP is fucking, evaporating off your fucking barrel.
How much of
get? Like you don't exactly see everything. These fucking bullets are trying to get mock Jesus. And so one of the machine gunners in the turret is just like, yeah, sure, that's what the fuck I'm talking about. You show him who's fucking boss, El Guapo. And I'm like, what the fuck? And apparently you saw one of the tracer rounds just skip off the ground and go right through the fucking windshield. And so like the dude get out and he's fucking furious and he's like pointing at his car. And like, I'm just like, was there anyone in the passenger seat? And they're like, I don't know, but he seems pissed. I think there was. And I'm like, oh, fuck. Like, I was just trying to shoot, like, fucking, disabling shots, And so the dude is fucking furious, and he's, like, pointing, and the corporal's like, hey, like, interpreter, like, tell him to stay back. Like, if he comes closer, we'll kill him, And so he, like, he's fucking just, like, very angrily fucking dancing at the car, Like, have you ever seen, like, one of those people who are, like, they're, like, a crossing guard, but they're, like, too into their job?
You know what it was? He was like the wacky waveable inflatable too, man.
It was like an usher who's like too fucking into his job,
Like the guys in the aircraft carriers that like do the extra super dance to like send the aircraft off.
Yeah, but like imagine if your vehicle had just been partially destroyed and your cousin had been killed.
Yeah.
And so when we talk about like killing people and stuff, like there's an example there. Like I have no fucking idea who else was in that vehicle. Like I could have shot this guy in the neck. I could have shot him in the face. I could have missed. There could have been nobody in there completely. And so when people say, like, did you kill anyone? One, that's a fucking dickhead question. Two, there's a lot of fucking times I legitimately don't know. You have somebody in your fucking target, in your rear side aperture, you slow, steady squeeze, the burst goes off, and it's not exactly like you get to go fucking check all the time.
You don't get a score counter in the upper right-hand corner.
You don't get a little fucking sideways cross. It's like when you hit, like in Call of Duty,
there's no, like, HUD in the corner that's like, 10 extra points because he was wearing a suicide vest and you took him out early.
Yeah, and so like there's situations where you shoot at people and like sometimes you do go over and like there's a person or two laying there dead and everybody's like, yeah, I got him. Like, okay, fuck you. Like
I will say that I thought you were going a different direction in this because I remember vaguely the story. I remember the salient details of the story, which is that there's this vehicle coming down the checkpoint, right? And the saw gunner. They shout, shove as best they can, which wave the little hanky.
Because we originally were shooting pyrotechnics, but one of the fucking Marines shot a pyrotechnic and it skipped through the fucking off the floor, went through the windshield and set the motherfucker on fire. So we stopped shooting fucking flares.
Yeah, but he turned out to be a bad guy anyway. But we just didn't want to have it happen to be a problem later on. So
we got to wrap this episode up.
Yeah. So there was one time when we had the truck and it was like one of those Hiluxes, right?
Yeah.
And okay, time to open up. The vehicle didn't stop from all the different show of force. So they opened up, shot through the windshield, right? Got the guy. The guy's sitting behind the windshield. He's driving. He's like, right? And so he's not quite out. The vehicle comes to a stop, rolls in, hits a ditch. He gets out and he's stumbling. And the last thing he says before he falls into the ditch, he goes, Mister, why? Falls into the ditch. He's done, right? And then at some point later on that afternoon, his family comes looking for him. Like we took him in, we put him in the place where you put that until you figure out what you're going to do with him. Yeah. Whether he's a bad guy or not, we trying to do the site survey. And the family comes and they said, why? Why would you shoot a 70-year-old blind man? And we're like, why would you let a 70-year-old blind man drive a vehicle?
Yo, that was the fucking patrol that I was leading that had the company commander on.
Exactly. Remember? That's what I thought you were going with that story.
You remember the fucking... No, this was the first deployment. That was the second deployment. You remember the story I told about how the fucking V-bid hit the checkpoint and the leg went flying and the kid was just like, leg, and he shot at it?
Yes.
Same kid. Same fucking kid.
That was the same one. That when the leg went flying, that was the same one where later on that day, my squad went on patrol and we went out and to the left. We passed that little IP checkpoint.
Yeah.
And I was walking and I felt a squish and I picked my boot up and there was like a fucking ear on it, right? And I'm like peeling it off my boot with a bayonet, being like, "This is disgusting."
Yeah, because we were at this bend on Route Michigan for any Iraq alumni. And dudes come flying around the corner, and we tried to do everything we fucking could, and wave him off, fucking flag and stuff like that, and he still kept coming, and like half the squad's in the fucking middle of the street, and so like I'm fucking pushing the captain out of the fucking road, like get to safety, and like one of the other team leaders, the team leader that those guys were in his team. He was just like, shoot him. And the company commander, like, as I have, like, my hand on his fucking flak, he's like, no, don't shoot. And then it was the saw gunner and the M6 team gunner, and it was like, a little ping at the end.
I don't know if it quite made that exact noise. Like an
angels
anime,
were singing in my head.
Well,
what was that Enya song? That the really, which one I'm talking about? Who can say where the
I think that was called Pilgrim. or maybe Time Traveler, Time Path. I don't fucking know. It's Enya.
Yeah.
I listen to it when I'm too drunk and I need to sleep. I don't really listen to
Who
it.
can say who Mike will cream pie? Could it be you or your best friend?
The answer is everyone. Mike,
Come home, Mike.
Mike, you need to come back and cream pie everyone.
Bye.